Mr. Drew.
One ink machine. One giant, never-ending studio. One inky demon stalking us throughout these decaying halls. Or at least, I used to think it was only one. In our last video, we covered quite a lot about Chapter 4. However, there was still much to go over as well. So if you haven't played it yet, spoilers are incoming. After covering Boris and Alice, the Ink People, also known as the Lost Ones, and Bendy's true goal and identity, we're still left with many other pieces to the puzzle. What pieces are those, you ask? Well, we still haven't talked about our good old friend Bertram. The thing is, Bertram's introduction actually gave us some amazing insight about the world of Bendy. For starters, let's swing back over to Bertram's room. After climbing out of the vent in Chapter 4, we are first introduced to the madman through the following audio recording.
For 40 years, I've built attractions that stagger the imagination. Colossal wonders, such as the world has never seen. I have earned my legacy with sweat.
He then goes on to talk about how he was embarrassed by Joey Drew, since he introduced him as Bertie. But this room we're in is sort of monumental in terms of understanding the world of Bendy and the Ink Machine. Up until this point, we pretty much have no idea what the outside world of Bendy and the Ink Machine looks like. We know there's at least some sort of sun, since there is light shining through the door at the start, and through the cracks in the roof in the studio. But other than that, we're always in the studio. In a previous video, I speculated about Bendy's world, but through this room in Chapter 4, we actually have a lot of neat things to unravel. We now know for certain that we're not just in an instanced world. Due to the drawings on the wall in the studio, we can see what the grand vision is for this Bendy theme park. We have a tall tower in the middle, a roller coaster off to the left, a Ferris wheel off to the right, and either a series of flags or a sky ride going across the park. Even though it's a sketch, it's confirmed that there's more to this world than just the studio. Like I said, for those who have watched my previous video about Bendy's world, that will probably make more sense. Looking at some of the other drawings showcases more of the park, but there is one in particular I find pretty interesting. It's a spooky mansion with gravestones and a dead tree off to the right. Now, what I find interesting about this sketch, actually that's if we assume it's a sketch, literally everything is drawn in this world, so for all we know it could be a photograph. Anyways, what I find interesting is that nothing else is around it. Judging by the shading on the ground, we have grass. And this is the first time we've seen trees in the world of Bendy. Now, this could have ultimately been the plans for the haunted house that we get a glimpse of in the basement. But theme parks are usually concrete jungles. It makes me wonder if these things are the same or separate. The last things we see on the walls are the trash can mock-ups and the images of a train. But there's still a whole table behind us with some elaborate groundwork laid out. On this map, we see where the large Bendy Tower could possibly go. And around it, tons of other buildings and landscapes are found. There are even some things that look like lakes too. The theme park is divided into 4 regions as well: Big Land, Tiny Land, Dark Land, and Light Land. We aren't given explanations about them though. I was like a kid in the candy store in this room. I'm all about environments and games, and while so many other people simply overlook this room, I spent my time looking through it because it showed us so much that we don't know about Bendy's world. This was the world that Henry came from before returning to this studio. A world that could be filled with humans for all we know. And for the first time ever in the series, we finally get a glimpse of what an actual human looks like in the Bendy universe. Once we start our showdown with Bertram, his head peeks out of the death machine that he operates. If we pull back the layers though, we can actually see his full face in all its creepy glory. He's bug-eyed, but we can see his nose, mustache, hair, mouth, and even parts of his ears. The first visual of an actual human, and possibly what both Henry and Joey Drew, among others, could look like as humans. And that's pretty important in my eyes, because before they became this, they could have looked like this. And of course, I've always been dying to know what Henry looks like. Not being able to see what he looks like in the mirror in Chapter 3 always bothered me. But thinking about it now, perhaps there's a greater reason for it. Sure, if Henry was just a human, then his reveal in the mirror would be super anticlimactic, or even perceived as odd. It'd be similar to when I saw Bertram. But in reality, this makes me think that Henry's physical appearance plays a much larger role than maybe we think. Which takes us back to the Alice Angel and Boris that we see at the end of Chapter 4. The good, pure versions of these characters who aren't corrupt. Characters that aren't harvested for their inky hearts. We have those who are corrupt, like Sammy, Alice and the bad Boris, and those who are pure, like regular Boris, Alice, and potentially Henry. Boris and Alice are interesting though because we have more than one copy of each, and if we dive into the files of the game, we can see that this pure Alice is labeled as Allison, whereas Boris is labeled as Tom, which for obvious reasons leads us to believe this is Allison Pendle and Thomas Connor. But if people we've encountered along the way are able to have both pure and impure forms, then who was Chapter 3's Boris? And is there a non-chaotic form of the projectionist? But I guess most importantly, who is pure cartoon Bendy? And I think this really puts the story in an interesting place. What if Sammy was an imperfect form of Bendy? And beyond that, what if Henry was the perfect form of Bendy? Let me explain. Henry enters the studio in Chapter 1 and seems generally unfazed that there's a cartoon creature on the table. Obviously, he's stunned that it's torn open, but he doesn't even comment on the fact that it's a cartoon character. At the end of the chapter, he falls down a hole into a pool of ink. After entering a room with a pentagram on the floor, he is struck with 3 powerful visuals. He collapses to the ground after not being able to handle the pressure, and wakes up in Chapter 2. However, we have no idea why he collapses, or what happened during this time. It isn't too far of a stretch to say that he was poisoned by the ink, by coming in contact with it while it washed over his body while he was trying to escape. Could the transition between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 actually be Henry becoming a cartoon character? And if he did he become the pure form of Bendy? The Boris that Henry encounters at the end of Chapter 2 recognizes him right away, but this Boris almost doesn't seem to have human capabilities. It even expects Henry to feed him, as if it is really a dog sitting by his master. It sort of reminds me of the picnic short we can watch on the Meatly YouTube channel. But out of all the characters, Boris and Bendy seem to be inseparable in the cartoons. They usually play pranks on each other, but it's apparent that they have a great friendship between the two of them. In a studio where Boris copies are being slaughtered left and right, perhaps Boris approaches Henry because Henry has become the purest form of Bendy. Henry can no longer be human, simply by the fact that when he dies, he is taken back into the ink, a screaming well of voices where he can hear his conscience buzzing around him. At the end of this tunnel, he then respawns out of a Bendy statue, ejected, and created by ink as it splashes around the screen. Beyond this, I strongly believe that Henry has an ink-related body, because even attacks that aren't ink-based cause his vision to turn inky. When they're fighting Bertram, getting hit by his carts causes ink to splash on the screen, despite it not being an ink-based attack. Henry became cursed the moment he came in contact with the dreaded ink, and now his only way to reverse the process, and save everyone, is to put an end to the dreaded ink machine, and his devilish, Bendy counterpart. But this also makes me wonder, does this mean that the visions that Henry has throughout the game are flashbacks? Or are they always through the eyes of Joey Drew? Hypothetically, if Henry and Joey are both Bendys now, perhaps there is some sort of linked hive mind through the ink. Maybe that's why these trippy experiences take place as Henry is navigating through the halls. It's a battle between the good, the bad, and the ugly. But perhaps some of the bad might not be as bad as they seem. I guess we'll find out in Chapter 5. But now that I dumped that on all of you, let me know what you think. Do you think Henry is a human, ink person, or a cartoon character? If he's not a human, when did he make the change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And with that, thanks for tuning in to this two-faced speculation. I got plenty of creepy theories to keep you on your toes. Find It's a Freddy's, Night in the Woods, Doki Doki Literature Club, you name it. Just don't go jumping into demonic ink puddles, okay? Thanks for watching, guys and gals. And until my next video, cheers.